There's going to be some echo. I'm not going to get in my closet for a whole episode.
Put the blanket over you.
Would that work?
It would get rid of some of the low echo, but if it's annoying, that's not necessary.
I don't know if it is. Do I sound any less echoey now?
You sound quite a bit less echoey.
Do I really?
Yeah.
Okay.
What'd you do?
I put a pair of jeans that were on my chair over my head.
It works.
Okay.
Welcome to I'd Buy That for $1, a podcast about inexpensive, common, and underappreciated records that are waiting to be rediscovered. I'm your host, Sean Hartman, author of the new book, Sad Bastards with Cool Hats, an in-depth look at the correlation between depressed musicians and their exquisite taste in headgear.
Oh, I'm sold. Take my money.
Yes, I knew that you would be. Guaranteed bestseller.
I wish one of those guys would have offered Elliott Smith some hat advice.
If only.
I'm co-host Jeremy, and I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah, don't plan to contribute much on this episode?
No, just a John Denver cover.
A 1986 John Denver cover.
True.
Wow. Sean's pretty good with that. You pulled that right out, Sean.
That's true. I did my research, at least on a few things.
Well, I'm co-host Peter Cook, and, it's a new year, 2026 here, and I've changed. I've changed a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How?
Well,
I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah. That's, it's telling, isn't it? New year, new me. I used to be a guy who sat around wondering how long co-host Sean would milk the New Age magazine for intros on the podcast. But nowadays, I'm a guy who sits around wondering how long co-host Sean will milk his trip to Pittsburgh record stores in 2023 for episodes of the podcast.
Yeah. We're starting to run out of selections, but we haven't quite run out just yet.
From that one trip a few years back?
Yep.
Well, what did you bring from that trip today?
Well, I believe this is the third entry in that Pittsburgh trip mini-series on the podcast. We did Robert Thomas Verlaine, Michael Parks, and today we're doing Danny O'Keefe in his 1972 album, O'Keefe.
Now, you had specifically sought out a lot of this sort of more subversive country music. I don't know if there's a specific subgenre I should be using, but I've learned that you on that trip was it at Jerry's that you went?
It was at Jerry's. Yeah, I went to. Well, no, I went to Jerry's, but the country records that we've covered were all purchased at Attic Records. Because Attic Records is not quite as big as far as square footage as Jerry's, but it still has a lot of records, and the records are all on sideways shelves, which makes it a little harder to just randomly browse. And I knew that going in, so I had made a little list of specific records to look for so I didn't just wander the halls feeling lost. And right before leaving, I had just been feeling a little bit of a country kick and had looked up lists of the subgenre that's often called cosmic country, which is one of those subgenres that's completely made up and there's not any real rules as to what it means, but usually it's country with a little bit of a psychedelic leaning, or at least country where the singers talk about drugs, that kind of thing.
You know it when you see it.
Yeah, you know when you see it. So I made a little list of some interesting country records that were in the price range that could be on this show, and I found pretty much everything I was looking for at Attic Records, and here we are, still talking about those selections.
I have to say, the following year, 2024, the three of us, along with Mark Weathersby, aka DJ Mahogany, all went to both Jerry's and Attic Records in Pittsburgh. And what was the stuff? I'm blanking on what we drank at that bar in between the. What is it that we?
Kava.
Kava, yeah, we had kava, and
we were legally not our best selves.
True.
I remember we went to Attic, and the shelving, the whole situation there with the vertical shelving, it was very overwhelming for me in my state at that time.
Yeah.
I remember it was a good thing that they closed, because I was starting to feel not my best self. I think they kicked us out.
They closed for the day. They're still in business.
No, yeah. I mean, they closed that day while we only had so much time to browse there, but it was too good a store for me to just leave, even though I wasn't feeling well. So
yeah, you definitely have to have a certain amount of available focus to be able to really dig at Attic, or you have to know specifically what you're looking for.
True. Well, let's hear a selection from this Danny O'Keefe.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go ahead and listen to the first track on the album and Danny's only real hit. Some people might describe him as a one-hit wonder, and this is the only song most people have ever heard by him, if they've heard him at all. I'm talking about the country standard Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues, Side A, Track 1.
Everybody's gone away. I believe this time they're gonna stay. There's not a soul I know around. Everybody's leaving town. Some caught a freight, some caught a plane. Find the sunshine, leave the rain. They said this town will waste your time. I guess they're right, it's wasting mine. Some gotta win, some gotta lose. Good Time Charlie's got the blues. My heart keeps telling me you're not a kid at 33. You play around, you lose your wife. You play too long, you lose your life. I got my pills to ease the pain.
When you sent this album, Sean, and said, hey, this is what we're doing, I was like, I don't know Danny O'Keefe, and started the sucker up and was like, oh, this song. I don't think I'd heard this version before, but I've heard the song before. But I love in his version here that pre-chorus, or that beginning of the chorus where everything kind of drops out except the vocal and a little bit of background sound, and then it kicks back in. That's great.
It's funny, Jeremy. I believe if you were to go back to the Leon Russell episode, Sean mentioned this album and he had played it while we were all hanging out at your place after that trip to Pittsburgh when he was on his way to Michigan. And I think I said, I don't think I'm familiar with that. And you said, yeah, you heard it when we were all listening to it while Sean was here. So now I'm flipping it on you. You have heard this at least once, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And I think my memory was that after the first song or two, you were like, yeah, the first song's the only good one on here.
Well, we must not have got to honky tonkin'.
Yeah, or maybe it just required a second in-depth listen when there wasn't a million things going on all at the same time, you know?
Fine.
Yeah, I think I had actually left before this album was even put on in that hang, but I'm not splitting hairs here or anything.
Who can say?
But that's a classic right there, and it's kind of hard to say was I familiar with this version or one of the many other covers. It's a standard.
Yeah, it's been covered by so many people. I didn't even bother to try and make the complete list of people that covered this song or people that have covered Danny O'Keefe songs in general. Yeah, but this one, more so than anything else, has been covered by tons and tons of people, especially country-leaning singer-songwriters with the name Danny. With the name Charlie, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If your name's Charlie and you're a country singer, you're kind of required to play this song.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Elvis Presley covered it. A lot of people have heard the Willie Nelson version. Danny O'Keefe has stated in several interviews that possibly his favorite of all of the cover versions, though, is the Waylon Jennings version. And I got to say, of the little bit of research I did in the covers, that's probably my favorite of the versions as well. Waylon really knocked it out of the park with his cover.
Yeah, at first you said Willie did it. I'm like, that'd be pretty well suited for Willie. And you say Waylon, I'm like, that's right in his range right there.
Yeah. Some of the people that covered it made it a little lighter or a little happier, which is fine. You can do your own take on it, but yeah, this was right in Waylon's wheelhouse, and he did it only the way that Waylon could.
Mm-hmm.
He lived it.
Yeah, when he's the right man for a song, look out. No one's going to be able to compare.
And, I got to say, Danny is one of those artists that's often people talk about him as a songwriter first, just because of the amount of people that have covered him and revere his songwriting skills. But aside from a few examples, every cover I heard, I was like, yeah, Danny did it better. Like, he's the original writer on this stuff, and, he also lived it too. He brought a real sense of authenticity to the vocal delivery, and, he really knew what he was doing, both as a songwriter and in the studio.
Yeah, listening to this and reading a little bit about Danny, I was reminded of J.D. Souther that we did an episode on, who also wrote songs for others, and that's what he was thought of, but he did like the best version a lot of the times.
Yeah. Another sad bastard with a cool hat.
True.
I'm sure you wrote about him too.
Oh, he's in there.
Well, I don't know much about Danny. I think I've maybe on occasion thought he was a session guy, and I think I was mixing him up with Danny Korchmar.
Yeah, he didn't do a lot of session work, but he did play with some amazing session musicians, and we'll get to that later in the episode. But before we get to the session players on this album, I suppose we should probably learn a little bit about the background of Danny O'Keefe himself and maybe some of those life experiences that fueled these songs we're hearing today.
No relation to Georgia O'Keefe?
Not that I'm aware of.
I think she might have an extra F in her name anyway.
Okay.
Couldn't be related then.
So Danny O'Keefe was born May 20th, 1943 in Spokane, Washington. It seems like he moved around a fair amount as a teenager, especially once he was kind of more living on his own and starting to play music in public. He lived in Minneapolis as a teenager, was fairly active in the coffeehouse circuit around there, made some valuable connections. He met a young Bob Dylan around that time. He also got to see some older legends of the folk and blues circuit, like Reverend Gary Davis and Mississippi John Hurt, two guys that were particularly inspiring to him, both as a singer, songwriter, and guitarist. At some point, he briefly lived in New York City. Sounds like that might have been a little bit of an overwhelming place for him. I don't know how long he stuck it out in the big city.
It's not for everyone.
No, it certainly is not. Danny was definitely a young man who was well acquainted with hard times from a very young age. I believe in the year 1960, his father died after a prolonged illness. He actually died in a poorhouse. Had a pretty huge effect on him, and he was kind of pretty much living on his own after that point, as far as I know. He got married at a pretty young age, had a daughter in the early 1960s, and the family then settled back in Washington State sometime in the early 1960s. He was working a lot of odd jobs at the time on top of playing music and trying to break into the music scene. Did a lot of delivery jobs, and then he suffered a really bad motorcycle accident that he almost died from. He has a pretty vivid retelling on his website of having these images of hitting a car and then just like going flying into the air almost to the treetops and just seeing everything below him and thinking, well, this is the end. But it was not the end for him. He did shatter his femur and was kind of walking around in crutches for quite a while after that.
About what year was that?
That would have been mid-1960s, somewhere around 1965, I believe. It's kind of hard to nail down exact dates for a lot of this early life stuff from what I've seen. But
I'm just seeing so many parallels with Dylan here, and then the motorcycle accident. I'm wondering who was first.
I did think about that comparison as well. I think Danny was probably first. I forget what year the Dylan motorcycle accident
66.
was. Okay, well, yeah, similar time for sure.
Oh, I did see in an interview that Danny mentioned he met Dylan when he was in New York in 63 and tried to like start a conversation about Minnesota because that's where they were both from. And Dylan was like not really interested in talking to him.
Yeah, I think he like just saw Dylan perform in Minneapolis and then in New York was like, hey, I've seen you before. We have similar friends. And Dylan was like, I don't want to talk to you.
He was probably already guarded by then.
Yeah. They did end up working together in the 90s, though. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah. Yep. They wrote a song together.
Yeah.
I guess by then.
Years and years later.
Danny was established enough by then to be worthy.
Yeah, a bit more of a reputation. Wasn't just some random weirdo. Well, how about we take a short break from the bio and listen to some more music before we dive back in? How about that?
How about that?
How about that?
Peter?
What do you got?
We're going to play one of my other favorite songs from this album and another track that was covered many times by other musicians. Talking about The Road, Side A, Track 5.
Named after my favorite Cormac McCarthy novel.
Highways and dance halls, a good song takes you far. You write about the moon, you dream about the stars. Blues in old motel rooms, girls in daddy's cars. You sing about the nights, you laugh about the scars. Coffee in the mornings, cocaine afternoons. You talk about the weather, you grin about the room. The phone calls long distance to tell you how you've been. You'll forget about the losses, you'll exaggerate the wins. And when you stop to let them know you got it down, it's just another town along the road. The lady's gone to see you if your name still rings a bell. They give you down to nothing and they say they knew you well. So you tell them you remember just a game. And along the road their faces all began to look the same.
Man, I just can't get enough of those vocal note bends that he loves doing on this album. That song especially, it just gets me every time.
I feel like the stereotype of the singer-songwriter who other people make their songs better, it's because the vocal delivery is kind of like flat or doesn't have the juice, but Danny's got the juice here.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
given a solid delivery.
100%.
I'm pretty positive I knew that song before listening to this album in preparation, but I'm not sure if it was that version or not. I'm guessing it's also been covered. I feel like it's one of those songs that I might be listening to Graham Parsons or someone like that on streaming, and then it will start after the album's over. It starts playing other artists, and I hear songs like that one.
I bet you know the Jackson Browne version.
That would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably the most famous cover of it. That's track 2 on Jackson Browne's best-selling album Running on Empty from 1977.
Okay. Yep. There you go.
Yeah, a lot of people probably know that version instead of the Danny O'Keefe version, but once again, I think Danny's version is better, much as I love Jackson Browne.
Ooh. How do you feel about Jackson Browne's These Days versus other covers of people doing that song, like the Nico version?
I don't know if I can really comment on the comparison there.
That's another discussion. I really like the Paul Westerberg version of These Days.
I'm partial to the Tallest Man on Earth version.
Oh yeah, I could see that being a good one. Surprised that Jeremy would be into the 2000s indie folk version.
Fair.
So I have a fun little association with that song now every time I hear it. Just a couple months ago,
The Road, you mean, right? We're back to The Road.
Yes, Danny O'Keefe's The Road from 1972's O'Keefe.
We're away from my tangent of These Days.
You and your tangents.
Keeps it interesting.
So a few months ago, I had the one and only Mark Weathersby, a.k.a. DJ Mahogany, here in Philly for his second visit. And of course, we were driving around doing some record digging, as I'm sure no one is surprised to learn. And I was playing him some music in the car in between record stores, and I played him some Danny O'Keefe, told him I was thinking about making it a selection on the podcast soon. Played him Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues, he loved that, and played him The Road. And as soon as the line Cocaine Afternoons came on in like a mild tone of shock, Mark was like, "Oh, Danny." So now every time I listen to The Road, I have Mark Weathersby in my head saying, "Oh, Danny."
I can hear it. Now I will too.
It's charming. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, that one has almost a melody that's one of those. I don't know if haunted is the right word, because that is always almost like a damaged quality, and I'm more going in like a haunting melody in that kind of sense. Like it's one of those melodies that feels like it's coming up out of the earth and has been around since olden times.
Yeah, there's definitely a timeless quality to some of these songs. And a few of these songs, had been around for a while before this album. This is not the first version of Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues. It was on his album before this. He actually recorded it years earlier before getting a label contract. So a lot of these had been kind of kicking around and had been really road tested and tried out with different arrangements. So there's definitely a lived-in quality to a lot of this music.
So Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues is his The Freshman by the Verve Pipe.
Yeah, that is definitely the comparison that everybody was thinking of.
I just had to say it if it wasn't obvious.
And definitely part of the secret sauce of this album is the producer and arranger, the great Arif Mardin, the house producer and arranger for Atlantic Records, who's responsible for just an absurd amount of classic albums.
Yeah, I associate him with the Bee Gees primarily. They're more their disco era, but that's underselling him as far as...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's notable for kind of helping foster the Bee Gees' transition into the falsetto disco sound. I know Shaka Khan has sung his praises quite a bit. He did a lot of work with Rufus, and yeah, just so many great artists. But yeah, like what Jeremy was saying with the interesting choices of having instruments drop out for certain sections, and also just how like kind of subtly funky a lot of these arrangements are for being kind of a folky, sad country album. It's just some like genius arrangements and production on here. It doesn't go too far, and it all really just serves the music in a great way.
Yeah, there's a good variety of things going on stylistically too. It's not too repetitive. I don't know if that's going to be necessarily evident in the selections today. I think you picked a good variety.
Yeah, I definitely left out a couple of the happier or more rockin' tracks, but I tried to not just pick the sad songs, much as I do think Danny kind of excels at the sadder material more than anything.
I'm sure that's the stuff Jeremy was like, oh yeah, about.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm along for that ride.
Yeah, it sounded like you liked this album.
That's true. I guess on my second listen, which I thought was my first listen, it spoke to me.
Yeah, it's a great album all the way through. I'm a big fan of this one. Glad you guys like it. Do you want to learn a little bit more about what brought Danny to this point?
I do.
All right, so we're going to go back into, he's doing the delivery jobs. He's working the odd jobs. He's so poor at one point that he can't afford a driver's license anymore. And he's in fact jailed twice for driving without a license. But all the while, he's still plugging away. One of his first big connections was a childhood friend by the name of Terry Bassett, who helped him get some of his first exposure in the music business. Terry was, at that point in the early and mid-'60s, a Seattle-based DJ who then went on to become one of the most influential concert promoters and tour managers of the 20th century. Despite not necessarily being a household name for most people, he was one of those major behind-the-scenes guys, especially in the Northeast. Notably, he was one of the guys who helped discover Jimi Hendrix and actually traveled with Jimi on his first tours.
Crazy.
There were a lot of people that were involved in pushing Hendrix and getting him to where he ended up. I guess if you had a hand in that, you'd want to be loud about it, though.
Yeah, it's a nice calling card to have. So Terry would occasionally get Danny some opening slots on shows. Danny talked about in an interview how one time he was scheduled to open for Sonny and Cher, but then arrived too late for the sound check due to car problems and was not allowed to play. He did get on some other shows. Terry also introduced Danny to another influential figure in his early life, label owner and Northwest music mogul Jerry Dennen. Does that name sound familiar to either of you?
Nothing to do with Denon turntables?
I don't think so.
I can't say it rings a bell.
Yeah, he's kind of another one of those behind-the-scenes guys. In 1963, he was the producer and original distributor of the big hit Louie Louie by the Kingsmen.
Oh, baby.
Oh, baby. He owned a couple different labels up there in the Seattle area, and Jerry Dennen liked Danny O'Keefe and liked the music, saw some potential there, and did whatever he could to help boost Danny's career. So while Danny's out there working those odd jobs, he would do what he could to scrape together some money, and every time he had a little bit, he would enter the studio, record some demos, hand the demos over to Jerry, and every once in a while, Jerry would take one of the best ones and put it on a 45, try and make a hit. Most of those kind of didn't go anywhere. And then he had a minor Northwest regional hit in 1966 with the 45, That Old Sweet Song. That was on Jerry Dennen's Piccadilly Records.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I know that label.
Yep. Then off of that, Danny released his first LP called Introducing Danny O'Keefe. It also came out on one of Jerry Dennen's labels. The album didn't really go anywhere. It wasn't much of a hit, but it is quite a collector's item now. Not a lot of copies out there. Usually in interviews, Danny kind of talks about how he kind of cringes hearing his earlier material from this Seattle time, but the stuff I heard I thought was great. There's an interesting rawness to it and an interesting mix of sounds. You got a little bit of the country and definitely some of that like psychedelic folk and, you know, the hippie music that was happening at the time. And he definitely showed a lot of promise from a very young age as a singer-songwriter.
Yeah, I hear that a lot with musicians, that their earliest material, they're embarrassed that it was documented, but it's often stuff that the fans love getting their hands on, because there's often like a eagerness and a hunger in a, exploration and excitement in those early recordings that gets kind of squeezed out, even if they continue to do great work and become better as songwriters and musicians. Sometimes there's something incomparable about the early excitement of people writing and recording.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. A lot of the material from this time was later in like the late 70s re-released under the name The Seattle Tapes. Those albums are a little cheaper than getting the actual original LP if you want to seek that out. So as he's starting to gain just a little bit more notoriety and connections in the mid-60s, he then joins a group called Calliope in 1968, a very short-lived group. They were kind of a four-piece heavy psych band. They actually got signed to Buddha Records and put out one album in 1968.
Okay, I was going to say, is this the Calliope?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few bands that had that name.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, but the one on Buddha. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea he was involved in that. Wow.
Yeah. It's interesting because that album I feel like it's strangely undervalued. When I was listening to the music and looking at that, I was like, man, this Calliope stuff must be super expensive. But no, it's like almost cheap enough to be put on this show. It's kind of wild.
Wow.
Yeah, great album. Danny wrote, I think, 2 of the songs on there. Plus there's a Bob Dylan cover and a Mamas and the Papas cover. Good mix of sound, and kind of also just, I think it also explains some of the mix of sound that you hear on this album. There's like one track on this album that gets a little heavier, which may sound like it comes out of nowhere compared to the country and folk stuff. But when you go back through Danny's history, yeah, he had a lot of stuff going on.
Wild. Full of surprises.
Yeah.
I didn't really have time to dig into his story, so this is all new to me.
Nice. So yeah, after the short-lived run of Calliope, Charlie was trying to start another band, and he was actually working with Buffalo Springfield manager Charles Green. They were working on putting a band together, and then one day they were at band practice, and I would imagine they were probably not their best selves. And
they had some kava.
Danny,
Charlie kind of randomly decides, like, hey, let's call up my friend Amit Erdogan at Atlantic Records and play him some of these hot songs we've got, see if he'll sign us. So they call him up, and over the phone, Danny plays Amit a few songs, including Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues. And somehow Amit liked it enough that the next day he drove down to audition the group in person. However, the band kind of quickly fell apart, or maybe never really gelled in the first place. But Amit still was impressed enough with the material that he gave Danny a solo contract, and then he got to release his first major label album, recorded entirely at Muscle Shoals, and also produced by Arif Mardin and released in 1970. That album was not much of a hit, but as used to happen back then, even if you didn't have a hit album, you were still given a chance to keep going and develop your sound a little more, and thankfully he did, and that's what brought us the album we're listening to today.
So this was number 2.
This is his third album, but his second major label album. Second album that had any kind of real distribution or notoriety or anything.
Yeah, real album. Not some DIY BS.
Yeah, and like I said, the 1970 album also had another version of Good Time Charlie's on it. And Arif was the one that really believed in this song so much that he encouraged Danny to record another version. And so, he's got some ideas for a different arrangement that he thinks would work. And that's what finally made that track a hit after being kicked around for like almost a decade, it would seem.
No, it needed to be, because clearly it's a standard.
Yeah, it worked.
Like an all-timer.
Another story of the producer being like, nah, you got to do that one. And then it's the big hit.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, that song, Good Time Charlie's, was Danny's only real hit. His only top 10 hit. Went all the way up to number 9. Stayed on the charts for quite a few weeks and was certified gold with, I believe, over 1 million sales in the initial run. So yeah, it was a pretty substantial hit for him, on top of then being covered by many, many other people.
Yeah, hopefully he had a good contractor publishing and has made some good loot on that over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get any stats on how much he's raked in, but it sounds like, he's been able to at least survive off of those publishing rights. So
still with us.
Something. He's still with us. He's still making it happen. All right, let's listen to another track. We're going to go ahead and flip this over to side B and play 2 of the last songs on the album. This is another kind of slower, sad one, but a standout from the album. This is side B, track 4, I'm Sober Now.
You took my little heart, you ran it round this town. Now you're gonna find your circus needs a brand new clown. And I don't mind playing anytime. You all can get me drunk, but baby, I'm sober now. Remember I cheated, don't you forget that I lied. What you don't know, mama, just how hard I tried. And I don't mind playing anytime. You all can't get me drunk, but baby, I'm sober now. They say some folks can make it living on their own, but the only ones I heard of was either saints or stones.
Well, the country music element of this has been pretty evident on all the songs that we've heard so far, but I think the country character was the most evident right there in that song. He leaned into that a bit more than on some of those other songs, and it's great. Love it.
Yeah, and once again, the vocal delivery really shines on that one, both in the country affectations, but also like it's a very rhythmic vocal delivery. Like the vocals are kind of like driving the rhythm in a lot of ways. The backing stuff is a little bit more subdued, but it's just a great arrangement.
As far as the variety on this album that I previously mentioned, I guess the thing that I don't know that is going to be evident in any of the songs that you chose today is the more rock element of this, which gets at times almost like progressive rock even, or psych rock. It goes pretty hard, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, especially on, I think it's the song An American Dream, the first one on side B. Yeah, there's like a surprising kind of psych rock element there. And I almost picked that song to have more of a full representation of the sound on here, but then I just kind of went with the songs that were my favorites.
Yeah, it's all good. It's there's really not a bad song in the bunch here, but I just thought I'd acknowledge that people might be surprised based on what we played today when they dig into the full album.
Yeah, and there's a couple like more up-tempo country songs on here that I also almost included. There's The Question and a cover of the Hank Williams song Honky Tonkin' that are both excellent. So yeah, I definitely recommend giving the full album a listen, not just the tracks that we're hearing today. There's a lot of variety and a lot to love on this one.
I did a little knee slapping when Honky Tonkin' came on, I won't lie.
As one should. So real quick, I'm going to give you the briefest overview of what Danny was up to after this album. He released 2 more albums on Atlantic and then moved to Warner Brother in the mid-1970s. Later on, he started his own label in the mid-1980s, a label called Cold Water. And then, as we said, he signed with Bob Dylan's publishing company in the early 90s, was doing some work, writing some songs and working on arrangements, and co-wrote the Bob Dylan song Well, 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 which was later covered by Ben Harper. He said the inspiration for the title and the lyrics was he was just given what was basically like a practice demo from Bob Dylan. And at one point, Bob is signaling the other musicians in the studio on some chord changes and just says, well. And Danny thought it would be funny if he wrote entire lyrics based on that and wrote a song about groundwater.
Yeah, I saw that he became very pro-environmentally active, as I'm not sure how to phrase that, but...
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that loves the great outdoors, especially being a Washington State resident for a long time. Spends a lot of time out in nature and really has a great love for that. He's a longtime activist. He's been involved with Greenpeace, and he also famously started a foundation to protect songbirds that were endangered by coffee bean growers.
Yeah, that was part in one of his interviews that jumped out to me, that he was, a part of the movement that pushed for fair trade, shade-grown coffee that is now kind of the norm in like fancy coffees. But he was at the forefront.
Yeah, seemingly one of the first people to be talking about that.
Yeah, I thought that was cool as a coffee snob myself.
Definitely. So we mentioned he's been covered by a lot of people: Jackson Browne, Willie Nelson, Waylon, Elvis, a couple others, Judy Collins, Sheena Easton, Jesse Colin Young, Leon Russell, Cab Calloway, and many, many others. And one thing that I thought was interesting is it's not like all those covers are just from this album. It's not like everybody just doing Good Time Charlie's. He's got covers from pretty much every album he did, even the like later stuff in the 80s when he was self-releasing it on his own label. That John Denver cover that we talked about was off of one of his Cold Water Records releases. So like, people really love this guy and we're really paying attention to his work. We've said it many times, but he's a musician's musician.
Yeah, he acknowledged that, he didn't really do the things that need to be done to become famous himself. He didn't like doing a bunch of shows or the promos or making songs that were commercially viable. He just liked making songs that meant something to him. And that's cool in my book.
I agree. Yeah, I think he accepted a long time ago that he was probably never going to have another hit quite as big as Good Time Charlie, but that didn't stop him from making some incredible music that people were still loving.
Yeah, someone who loved the work more than the spotlight.
Definitely. Yeah, and it shows. So before we get out of here, I want to talk just a little bit about the session players. One of Peter's first responses when listening to this is that it's got a country sound, but it doesn't quite have a Nashville sound. It kind of has more of a Memphis sound to me. And Peter was spot on without even looking it up. This is a 100% Memphis record.
We've listened to so much now that you start to hear those things.
Yeah, you're picking up on it for sure. So Danny's playing, the lead guitars, both acoustic and electric on here, and obviously doing all the lead vocals. But everything behind him is mostly played by official and unofficial members of the Memphis Boys, which was a group of studio musicians who at the time were working for American Sound Studios in Memphis. Those guys are on a bunch of hits and a fair amount of albums that we've talked about before. You can hear pretty much this same lineup with a few exceptions on albums like Memphis Underground by the great Herbie Mann.
Herbie Mann, yeah.
Yeah. Previously featured in season 1 of this show.
An eternity ago.
Yeah. This is also a very similar lineup to John Prine's self-titled album, a highly respected, untouchable classic.
That we could never cover.
No, absolutely not. A lot of these guys are also on the Jeannie Pruitt album that we covered. Most of them are playing on the amazing Dusty in Memphis, another album that we cannot cover. However, we'll definitely get to a Dusty album soon enough.
Soon.
And then much after American Sound Studios closed, you can still hear most of these players on the 1985 album, The Highwaymen.
Oh, okay.
With all those guys.
Yeah. So the Memphis boys that are on this record, just a few of them. We got on acoustic guitar, Johnny Christopher, who also co-wrote the song Always on My Mind, another country standard. On bass, you got Mike Leach. On drums, you got Gene Chrisman and Hayward Bishop. On electric guitar, you got Reggie Young. Piano, Bobby Wood. On organ, you got Bobby Emmons, who was also a member of Bill Black's Combo from 1960 to 1963. And he also wrote a huge country hit, Lukenbach, Texas.
Oh,
One of my favorite Waylon tracks.
Yeah.
And on steel guitar, Leo LeBlanc.
That's a pro lineup right there.
Some pro Memphis boys right there.
Yeah. None of the Nashville A-Team names in there. So they got that country sound. It's just a little different down there in Memphis.
So Sean, Dad,
Yeah.
it's that time that we have come to love and enjoy every episode.
Yeah, a long time tradition, some might say.
A long-time tradition, and I'm sure that you have prepared for us some recommended similar albums.
Remember all those times when you would tee me up for this and I would jokingly pretend like I had forgotten to write it and, maybe I could come up with something? Well, for the first time in podcast history, I somehow absolutely forgot to write that section legitimately. It's been a hell of a week and been a hell of a few months. Yeah,
We've been on break.
We've been on break. I forgot how to do all of this. So I don't know. Should we just kind of make it up on the spot maybe?
When a friend needs help, you help them.
All right, let's do this. What are some albums that are similar to this? Maybe something we featured, maybe something we haven't. I don't know.
I already threw one out there. J.D. Souther's Black Rose album that we covered on the podcast.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Similar vibes, similar singer-songwriter, covered by a bunch of famous people and underappreciated for their own versions of their own songs.
Yeah. Very soon we're going to be covering another album with a J.D. Souther song on it. I happen to know.
Ooh, laying breadcrumbs.
Stay tuned for that. That was with the J.D. Souther was with guest Jesse Phillips. Not too far back.
Peter, do you have a good rec?
Yeah, I'm thinking really early on another previously featured album, Phil Ochs' Greatest Hits. It's got a bit of that cosmic country sound to it at times.
Yeah, that's a good one.
A Phil Ochs record.
Another sad bastard that's been known to have a cool hat in some of his album covers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't work out too well for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, aside from writing some great music, but Jonathan Edwards, Honky Tonk Stardust Cowboy. It's a good comparison.
And another great hat.
Another great hat, another cosmic country album. Another one that we have not covered that I thought I had bought in Pittsburgh, but I actually had just, it was on my list around the same time, but I ended up ordering it from a Philadelphia store just a few months after that Pittsburgh trip. But at some point, I want to talk about Eric Anderson's 1969 album, A Country Dream. It's a good comparison to this one. Yeah, that's an amazing album.
That's one that stuck out to me that you threw out as a cosmic country one.
Mm-hmm. definitely gotta, at some point, talk about that Commander Cody album, Lost in the Ozone, 1971.
The one that I doubted the existence of, but have now listened to, and it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, down to seeds and stems again.
Well, I think we've managed to do it. I think that's enough recommended similar albums.
All right, we pulled it off. Hopefully the rest of the season I can actually remember how to do my job correctly.
I believe in you.
Thank you.
All right, well, what's left? What are we going out on, Sean?
All right, I'm going to give you just a taste of the slightly more happy and upbeat material from this one. This is basically the last song. There's like a 30-second partial song after it, but we're going to hear side B, track 5, Roseland Taxi Dancer. I love this track because I don't know if anybody else made this comparison, but to me, it sounds just a little bit like Leon Redbone, or at least the kind of song that Leon Redbone might have selected for an album.
Oh yeah, we talked about some of this sounding timeless, but this sounds archaic.
Yeah, he's digging way back in the same way that Leon Redbone might have. So I really enjoy this one. Great way to go out.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you for listening to I'd Buy That for $1. Good to be back here in 2026. I'm co-host Peter Cook.
I'm co-host Jeremy.
I'm co-host Sean Hartman.
Come on now, Granny dear. You're much too old to cry. You got your memories, but dearie, so do I. She was the sweetest rose of all that strange bouquet. The music played forever as we danced the night away. Come on and take a chance on a Roseland Taxi Dancer. Hey, hey, dance your night away. Here's your ticket to romance. Come on, sailor, what's the answer? The band will play till the break of day. And though she'll never love you, you can pass away the while. Trade your ticket for a smile. I got a ticket for one more. Come on, you've nothing left to lose. It's once more round the floor. Sweetie, listen to the